Jay, the first thing that I'd like to do is ask you a simple question after I say hello. Hello, Jay.
Hey, buddy.
You know, my question is this, Jay. You ready?
Yeah.
How you doing?
You know, I thought you might ask me that. If I were any better, I would have graduated from the Yale Law School as J.D. Vance.
That's a good. Well, you've made a pretty good living after that Yale. You got no complaints.
His wife's there. They met at the Yale Law School. They were
did.
both students there. And she clerked for 2 Supreme Court justices.
Oh, wow. I did not know that.
Yeah, boy, his life just, yeah. My life's good. You know that. I'm in a really good place in life. But, boy, his life just got a lot better.
Well, and what a great American story. Just the quintessential American story of an ability to overcome.
Did he go into the Marines after graduating from the Yale Law School? Or was it before law school?
I think it was before.
Yeah, it would make sense.
Yeah, I believe it was before. I think he did Marines first and then Yale after.
Well, there's not a lot of those folks. I didn't meet any Marines when I was there.
Man, oh man. And just, to come from where he came from. And, and I don't say this a lot because I don't want people to think that I'm trying to compare myself to J.D. Vance, because I'm not. But there are a lot of similarities in his story and my story. I mean,
yep.
I lost, I didn't lose my mother.
Different reasons.
Different reasons, but I lost my mother for different reasons. He lost his to drugs. I lost mine to cancer. My grandparents were my primary caregivers when I was growing up. His grandparents were his. I mean, just feeling like you're growing up out of nothing and trying to scratch and as best you can kind of claw your way out of what looks to be an insurmountable. I mean, it's a great American story. And you bring up a great point, Jay. I'm a little frustrated, and, it is what it is that more Americans don't know that story because of the R behind his name.
Yeah.
Yeah, well. But, he's having a good week this week.
A lot more of it know about it because of Elon than we've known about it a year ago.
Amen. I believe that. What do you, I know it's my world, not yours. You talk about the law. You like to say you defend the poor and downtrodden, but any thoughts about the events of this week, my friend?
Well, yeah, the events of the whole week is, the shocking. The Virginia was the shocker of the whole thing. Who could have ever guessed it had been like that?
Let me tell you. Razor thin and.
Well, I'm talking about 2 other teams blocking for.
He's talking.
who would have seen that?
Jay's talking about NASCAR.
Well, I'll say this about it all, because I'm focused on the legal side. You do the political side. But, I figured at some point we'll talk about what's going to happen to all these criminal cases.
Yes.
And I just can't wait to see, the federal cases are going to go away, right? They're just going to go away. But Trump has a court hearing next week in the New York court on the criminal convictions there. And so it'll be really interesting to see how all that plays out. I got to be, back when the Trump thing first started, I think you said you're a fan of chaos,
mm-hmm.
and so you love Trump. Well, I'm a little bit of a fan of chaos, too. And I'll just confess to you, man, there is a part of me that hopes that judge puts him in prison.
just to see it happen.
Just to see it happen, yeah.
Oh, because there is nothing preventing the judge in New York from sentencing the president-elect of the United States of America to prison.
Yeah. And I'm stealing this from somebody else I won't steal it, but we just saw the most consequential jury verdict in the history of this country.
Yeah, well, you got that right.
Yep.
So you're talking about the verdict that happened Tuesday.
Yeah.
Right. The jury spoke on every single legal matter in front of Donald Trump. Yep. So, have you thought about what, you've taught me in the 20 years that we've been doing this, that if it is a fool's errand to try to get inside the mind of a judge or a jury.
Mm-hmm.
before you know where their minds are at.
That's right, unless you really know them.
Unless you're right. Unless you really feel like you understand. And so, what would you dare speculate what this judge will do?
Well, here's what I have to say about it, Matt. I've said from the very beginning of this, none of these cases have to do with law. It all has to do with politics. It was all done, I think, originally to keep him from getting nominated, but then to keep him from getting elected. That was the sole purpose of all this. If he had been running for president, these cases would not have been brought. He has now won the presidential race. It didn't work, Matt. It didn't work. They're the dog that's caught the car they were chasing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what do they do? They really didn't want the car. So I'll speculate he has a chance to dismiss the case next week. And it's a close call, really close call, but I think he'll dismiss the case.
Yeah. I mean, as liberal as this judge seems to be, and as much as he has seemed to put his thumb on the scale anyway, what the alternative is, you sentence him to jail and.
Well, or not. I mean, he wouldn't have to sentence him in jail, puts him on probation, and fines him.
Right.
And then it'll drag out in appeals for years, and lawyers make a lot of money. So there's a bright side. There's no,
You didn't think about that one, did you?
Silver lining to it, Cloud. But I do, you got to think a little bit, because the civil case, where you got hit with a $500 million verdict, that's going to get thrown out on appeal. I feel very confident about that, because I do think the judiciary in New York cares about the reputation. Right now, a lot of people don't want to do business in New York. And so I'm kind of banking on that coming into play in this a little bit, and they'll say, we really don't need for people to think we're that big of a kangaroo court. But it's a close call. Wouldn't surprise me if it goes the other way. I don't think he's going to sentence him to prison. I think he'll put him on probation and fine him.
Boy, that Letitia James, she's double downing on her rhetoric for some. I mean, I don't know what that's all about, except that she's just angry that he got elected.
Got her elected the first time.
Well, that's right. I mean,
it's all about getting reelected, man.
I suppose so. All right, Jay's with us. Jay, you and I are gonna get into this Martinsville deal, because I am very curious what you have to think about that. Jay and I, for those who do not know, are big NASCAR fans, and there was a little spot of controversy last weekend at I think I'm saying this right, the penultimate race. I never could say that word, but it's the one right before the one that's the ultimate one. So that's the am I saying that right, Bell? And Bell says I am. 22 after the hour on Super Dot. I'm glad I had Jay on hold, because he's laughing at me right now, I bet. 615-737-9986, either via text or telephone call if you got any question for our man, Jay St. Clair. We'd love to hear him. Jay, I'm going to ask you about the Supreme Court in just a moment, because Donald Trump's reelection, obviously, it's not unprecedented in that Grover Cleveland had a non-concurrent 2 terms. I think I'm right in this, 22nd and 24th. President of the United States. Trump will have that too, but it offers him a little bit of an opportunity on the court level. I want to ask you about that. But in the few minutes before the bottom, what do you make of this Martinsville? I mean, Jay, neither of our drivers are in the chase for the championship in the final race. Mm-hmm. So I feel
there's a lot to talk about. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people saying that maybe that something's got to be changed, because the person that won the most, it's all about winning races. Now, if you win a race, you advance.
Right.
Well, Kyle Larson won more races than anybody this year. He won 6 races, and he's not in the final.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of conversations about that. And I saw where, I think it was Kevin Harvick or somebody smart had a proposal for how to deal with that. And so there's that part of it. The fixing the race, I guess let's just call it that way, or intentionally manipulating the finish of the race. I'm not a fan of that. You shouldn't be able to do that. Some of it happens a little bit, maybe. Some of them may lay down not to let somebody else beat them, but they're just not going to have a bad day. Then they're just not doing their best.
Can I give an example and see if you agree with this? Like, yep. I don't mind if drivers for the same team, drafting together, for example. Right. And if I'm doing that specifically to benefit my teammate, that's
they're not slowing down.
That's what I was going to say. They're speeding up, right?
No, they're not slowing down. You know what used to before, now the caution comes out, the car, they stop. You don't race back to the flag under caution. Well, used to you'd race back to the flag. And sometimes the leader would slow down to let somebody unlap themselves.
Right.
And it was just kind of courteous, and that's the way it went. But, so there's nothing wrong with helping somebody else go faster. It's intentionally going slower to let somebody pass you or to keep from passing somebody. And that's just fixing the game, and it's loaded dice, and I don't like that. And I thought NASCAR did the right thing.
So, for those who don't know, maybe you're not as much of a fan as Jay and I are, or you missed it. There was a dynamic where there was a driver on the track that was in the final race, and he can win a championship. The final four that get into that race, they're qualified to race for the championship in that final race. And then one driver, the 24 car, William Byron, was in a position where if any other cars passed him, he was going to lose that final spot. Right. And so not teammates, but Chevrolet drivers, because he was a Chevrolet driver, I'm just going to say decided, because it's pretty obvious, that they were just going to ride 2 by 2 behind him. They easily could have passed him if they wanted to, but they chose not to, because in doing so, he would miss out on the championship. And it was just obvious to everybody. I don't know if you watched it, I thought everyone in that booth knew it was going on, because everybody got quiet. They didn't know what to say about it. You know what I'm saying?
Well, this is how naive I am, man. I watched it, and they were clearly faster than he was, but they weren't passing him. I said, "Oh, that's so polite." But please don't wreck him. I mean, it never occurred to me they would throw the race.
Right. Well, it occurred to Christopher Bell, I'll tell you that. All right, let's take the news, and when we come back, I'm going to make the case, Jay, and I know you're not going to like it, but I'm going to make the case. Well, I don't know. I don't want to presume how you're going to respond to this. That nothing that Christopher Bell did would have happened but for the blocking activity. And I wonder if NASCAR considered that prior to telling Christopher Bell he did, because there was another component to this. I don't want to get too much in the weeds, but we'll address it in a moment. Take your telephone calls and your questions as well, and ask Jay about the United States Supreme Court makeup and whether or not there's a possibility of a retirement or two coming on the horizon. Hey, Jay.
Yep.
I think I know the answer to this, but I love it anyway. Do you know who Lizzo is?
Who?
There you go. That was the right answer.
That was the right answer, Jay. Lizzo got paid $2 million to appear with Kamala Harris.
Good for Lizzo.
Good for Lizzo.
I would like to thank Lizzo for draining $2 million out of their war chest.
$1 billion they spent in just over man, oh man, that's big money.
Does it say what Beyonce got paid?
That we have not gotten to the A-list celebrities quite yet.
I wonder if anybody haggled.
Just, Kamala, to stay, if it were a Barack, I'd give him a discount, but for you,
Kamala's telling Lizzo, just go out there and tell him you love Detroit.
Jay, on the previous matter of the NASCAR race. So I just want to stand before the judge. You're the judge, okay? Your Honor, Christopher Bell, his actions were only committed and necessary. Now, he didn't try to get to the wall. He didn't try to do that Ross Chastain slingshot. He ended up there, and I agree with you, Your Honor. Right. But none of that would have happened but for the illegal actions of the blocking that was going on and the unsportsmanlike competition that was going on in front of him. But for those actions, Christopher Bell never would have done what he did.
Counselor, 2 wrongs don't make it right.
Dadgummit, I knew you were going to...
Now, 3 rights will make it left.
I knew you were going to say that.
2 wrongs don't make it wrong.
I mean, I feel bad for Christopher Bell because he's put in that box, but he knew exactly what he was doing, and so did Bubba Wallace.
My word, Bubba Wallace slowed down for him.
Yeah, that's right. It
was going on all over the track.
I love, these guys think they're slick on the radios, and I don't want to bore the audience, but these guys think they're slick on the radios. And Bubba, they told Bubba like where he was and where his teammates were and all that, and Bubba said, "I feel a tire going down." And everybody knows what that means.
Yeah.
Well, who you rooting for, Jay? If your man's not in the race, my man's not in the race. I mean, Chase just got beat fair and square by Ryan Blaney. That was the bottom line on that.
No, I agree, and I think for that reason, I like Ryan Blaney.
I do too. I do too.
And so I guess that's who I'm going to go for.
I'm with you, Jay. We're on the same team this weekend. Jay, what are the possibilities that we have several Supreme Court vacancies in the Trump term 2?
Well, it's hard to predict death or illness, but I don't. He got real lucky first time around, man. Right? I mean, he appointed as many Supreme Court justices as Obama and Biden did in 3 terms.
Right.
He got 3 in 1 term.
Right.
Well, it took them 3. So just statistically, just looking over the long run of time, I think statistically it's more likely he won't get any more choices. But one never knows. I know we've been talking about Justice Thomas a little bit. Our friend Richard said that he's personally heard him say that, appointed for life means appointed for life. And so I'm going to stay here.
Sure.
So I don't see him retiring solely to create an opening for Trump to fill. And then you never know what happens. But I do not see anybody retiring solely to create a vacancy for Trump to fill it.
Well, and one of my loyal listeners asked the question, is it possible that Sotomayor would retire now because there's some health concerns about her?
Right.
And, they would just hold off on that till next year, right?
The Dems have the Senate right now, don't they?
They do. That's right.
So they can run it through, right? I mean, the pubs did that at the end of Trump. The Comer, right? I mean, it wasn't after the election, but it was during the summer. So, they could, but, it doesn't really, all it gives them is longevity.
Liberal for a liberal, or a more left to center judge for a left to center judge, I guess.
Well, they don't have to worry about the filibuster either if they wanted to appoint one.
I guess so.
Thanks, Harry Reid.
Yeah, so when has democracy, is it dead?
I'm
not feeling anything different.
I'm not feeling different either. But we are going to, Belle and I had the idea that starting on Monday, we're going to start our democracy death clock where we count down to his inauguration. Jay, democracy's not going to die until he takes office again. That's in January. Yeah.
I see. Right.
When he says I do, that's the kill switch on democracy.
That's what we're told. All right. A number of you asking questions of Jay St. Clair unrelated to the current conversation. I want to get to those questions because those are the most important things. And let's see. Let me do this real quick. Let me put Jay on there. And Jillian has a question. Jillian, you're on with our man Jay St. Clair. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Hey, it's actually Julian.
Julian. My apologies.
No, it's all good. Sometimes I feel a little female. But nonetheless, I'm kidding on that one. I was just wondering, do you think making calls to our elected senators from Tennessee would have any influence in them getting a majority level or voting for a majority leader that would be unlike Mitch McConnell, perhaps not a Thune or a Cornyn, but perhaps someone like Rick Scott or Ted Cruz or even Rand Paul, somebody that would not run that place like Mitch McConnell did, and I'll shut up and listen.
Well, thank you, Julian.
That's in Matt's bailiwick, not mine, so I'll let you take that one, Matt.
Well, Julian, I would say this. I think Donald Trump, after everything that he's been through, when he came into office in 2016, there were a lot of Republicans looking at him going, how the heck did this happen? What is this guy doing in D.C.? And there were a lot of Republicans in elected office loath to side with him on certain things, and they kind of pushed back on him. They quote-unquote never Trumpers and even, hesitant Trumpers. I don't find a lot of those people in Washington, D.C. anymore. So I think the most important person right now, exterior to the Senate, that will aid in deciding who the Senate Majority Leader will be is Donald J. Trump. I understand your concerns about Thune and all that, but the Senate has traditionally been, in my lifetime and in my study of history, it's a body that believes in tradition and rules, and they believe in seniority. It's a big deal to them up there. So that will factor in. It's not the sole determination, obviously, but it will factor in a great deal. But I don't believe that anybody's going to get the votes necessary without Donald Trump being okay with the Senate Majority Leader. That's just my take on it. And frankly, I think whomever is Majority Leader, they're going to understand the mandate that the American people just gave Donald Trump, and they're going to be willing to work with him and promote and push through an agenda that he is approving of. And that's the way that I would answer that. Jay, actually it says it this way. Could you please ask your great lawyer friend, that's nice, if a stepchild would be considered next of kin if no will is left between the father and the stepmother and they both die? Or would it go to a different blood relative?
No. Stepchildren are not considered heirs without a will. That's just the short, simple answer. No.
Okay. Well, there you go. 4152, there is your answer. 4434 says, could you please ask Jay this? I'm needing a tenants' rights attorney for Davidson County. And that's the whole thing. So, what does a tenant's right? Have you ever heard of that, Jay? A tenant's rights attorney?
Yeah, no, this is somebody who's probably renting and his landlord is messing with him. I don't know of any personally, all these lawyers advertise, but, that's not a really good way to pick a lawyer. But I would go on the web, search for tenants' rights attorneys in Davidson County and see who pops up. I'd call that person, and then if you're comfortable with them, do business with them. If you're not, then you can find me on the internet. It was Littler Mendelson. Shoot me an email, and I'll do some poking around and find you the best person I can.
Oh, that's great. Jay, you're always so good to our folks, and I appreciate that. I
won't tell you the reason. I won't tell you the reason why. Well, maybe I did. It has to do when I go up to the pearly gates of St. Peter opens the Book of Life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I got a lot of black marks over there on the right side, man. Mm-hmm. I need some good check marks over there on the left side.
You got a lot of those too, buddy. I've known you long enough to know. As a matter of fact, there's a couple over there for me.
That's right. Thank you, man.
Look,
you're helping me get into heaven.
Well, I don't say that. You're helping me out, but I think there's a couple of those over there for me. All right, here's the last question.
We're backslid a couple of times at the casino.
That's true. That's true. But we need a little celebratory backsliding after the Trump victory. We're going to figure that out. All right, here's your final question, Jay, from the listeners. 7019 out of Mount Juliet wants to know if there is any federal or state statute that will keep Alabama out of the 12-team college playoff. After all, they did lose to Vanderbilt. How about that?
I love college football. I saw a big time Alabama. Auburn rolled Toomer's corner
after Trump won.
After Trump won, and folks in Tennessee may not know the significance of that, but it's a prominent place right on campus, and they always roll it when they win. And so this big Alabama fan got on the Twitter and said, "My family may hate this for this, but I'm really proud of Auburn for doing that."
Ken, let me ask Ken. Ken, do you know about that tradition?
What's that?
So the Auburn Tigers, when they win a big football game, they've got these oak trees on the corner of their campus, and they go and they throw toilet paper up into the trees, and they call it rolling Toomer's corner.
Oh.
And after really big wins, and I guess they do it after every home win, but after really big wins, they roll Toomer's corner, and after Trump won the other night, they went and they rolled Toomer's corner.
That's great.
That's good.
Did they release the eagle?
No, I don't know if they. I don't know if they let the eagle go or not. They ought to. I mean, after all, Donald Trump's had one in his office. Jay, you know how much I love these visits together, my friend, and we'll do it again very soon. And we'll get over to Tunica.
No, I like it. I'll text you. Let's make that happen.
Yep, we'll do it. All right, talk to you soon, my friend.